Welcome to Series 50, everyone. Goodness, 50 series.
We've done 50 of these.
50 of these.
Oh, boy.
That's over 50 months of work on this podcast.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that we've done 50 of these, but also what?
Where did the time come from?
When did that happen?
Yeah.
I'm still in shock that it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
I feel like was there a time in my life when I wasn't doing this? Also, it's still very new, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just...
It's wild how long 4 years feels and how short it feels at the same time.
Right. And I don't know how much of that is the fact that the last 2 years have been a lifetime. Yeah. But it's hard to say.
That's fair. Somehow we've been keeping it going throughout this whole thing. And
yeah, we had to cut back a little bit because the pandemic's been a lot. We're working from home. I was homeschooling my kids for most of last year. Yeah. I fell down some stairs. I, had a lot of health issues last year.
Oh yeah.
So, but the fact that we've managed to keep 3 out of 4 every month still feels pretty good.
Exactly.
And I still hold out hope, dear listeners. We really do want to get our Evolution Cast episodes back up. They require a lot more planning and effort than
so much more, the
other episodes. And it's a whole other day of recording too. So not doubles, but it doubles our number of days we spend recording.
Exactly.
So, but I'm still really proud of what we have. After 50 series, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited because this month we've got the folks from Kill Every Monster joining us, Dylan and Aram. And we're making some really bespoke D&D 5e compatible characters.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because in Series 1, we covered D&D. And so we wanted to do something cool for Series 50 because 50 is a cool, exciting number. It's a big deal. But it's been a long time since we visited D&D. And there's a lot of stuff out there. We talk about D&D all the time. So we decided to sit down and make D&D characters using almost anything except D&D.
Yeah.
And it shows. We had a great time.
It was so much fun. But wow.
You're in for a treat, everyone.
Yeah. I apologize if the episodes for this series, at least these first 2 episodes, are a little long. Because we recorded for 5 hours somehow.
Yeah.
Just for the first 2 episodes. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure an hour and a half of that is unusable. Not even for outtakes. So
right. Well, look.
Yeah.
There was some content.
There was a lot of content. But we'll see. Some of those outtakes might make it up somewhere. I know Aram and Dylan said they might take some of the stuff that we can't use on our show and put it up on for bonus content for themselves. So we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, we've got that. We've got Q&A episodes coming up later this month. After the series.
We've got an actual play coming. We got all kinds of stuff.
Actual play. So we'll quiet down a little bit so we can get to the announcements. So we aren't here forever. So you can find out about some of these cool things going on.
Yeah. So first, as Ryan mentioned, we have our Q&A episode coming up. We are going to release that after Series 50. There are 5 Mondays in May. So normally we would have 2 weeks off, but our hope is that we can release our Q&A episodes. We have a bunch of questions, so we're going to probably split it up into 2 episodes. And then you'll have something every single Monday in May. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great.
That said, this is probably your last chance this round to get your questions in. We've had quite a few already, but we really want yours too. We really want as many questions as we possibly can. So if you have any pressing questions for us about character creation, about ourselves, about what we like in games, about game design, really anything. What we like to dip in ranch, or not, if you're Ryan. Please feel free to ask. We love answering these kind of questions. It's great. So you can submit your questions at questions.charactercreationcast.com, and we will try our best to answer them.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got some bonus content coming to the One Shot Network Secret Archive for Patreon subscribers at the $5 and up level. It may actually be there already. We're recording this cold open the Tuesday prior to the release of this episode. So if it's there, check it out. We'll have it in our show notes. For this, we stumbled through the base creation rules for Marvel superheroes.
I feel like stumbled is putting it generously. We just start over like 3 times because I kept getting too frustrated.
We did. There were some good nuggets that I was able to pull out of that frustration, and that made it into the episode. But goodness gracious, it was an ordeal. We did figure out what China pattern we had.
Well, which is clearly the most important part of that game.
Exactly. So I'm really happy that we were able to do that. And honestly, once we figured out a system, it was a lot of fun. So
yeah, was it the right one? We don't know.
Exactly. So,
who can say?
I mean, for listeners that enjoy the Marvel superheroes game and enjoy and have used correctly the base building mechanics for Marvel superheroes, you can add us after listening and let us know how off we were from.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We said it in the episode. We can say it here now too, is that like, please don't at us to tell us we're wrong. Yeah. We are well aware. We know. We know. But we are interested in knowing exactly how wrong we are. Exactly. And where we're wrong. So if you do know how the base building mechanics work in Marvel, please tell us. Exactly. If you know the rules, I guess, please help.
Please let us know, because we tried so hard.
We've been losing sleep trying to figure it out. Like, lay awake at night. Do you think maybe we both roll on the table? No, that can't be right.
That can't be right. What's happening here? But definitely hit us up on Twitter, or you can even hit us up on Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com. And we'd love to be proven how wrong we were.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I just want to know why we're wrong. Yeah, not exactly. That we are. We know, but I just want to know why. Other ways that you can support us would be by leaving a rating or review on your podcatcher of choice, because we don't have any more. Apple Podcasts is the most impactful. It's the one that people see and that, comes up when you Google things. There are not a ton of places to leave podcast reviews, so you can check out Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Facebook. But if you happen to leave them anywhere that isn't one of those places, please let us know and we will go dig it up so that we can read it. We really like reading them. So please leave them and tell us where, everyone, this really is cold open. Please tell us how podcast, how do game, how read.
How good podcast, how read podcast, good.
Sometimes your 50 series is in and it's just too much, It's
fine. It's too much in a good way. And honestly, if I'm going to lose my mind doing a project, it's fun to lose my mind with you, Amelia. So
yeah, I mean, same. It's like, if this is one of those if this is how I'm gonna go, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
Oh, here we got a drum roll for the most important announcement, everyone.
Oh, yes. There you go. Picks up on the mic, finger snaps. One last announcement. Hey, my new studio is all set.
Woo!
I know. So I got the sound panels up on the wall. I've got the ceiling panels hanging from the ceiling. And it's virtually eliminated my reverb.
You sound so different. No, actually, you do. Actually, I can tell.
Right? Even Amelia can tell.
Even Amelia. Oh, yep.
It's amazing. No, it was wild because I took 4 different snapshots of my soundscape in here, right? Mm-hmm. And like from no panels to panels just laying against the walls to panels partially installed to everything fully installed, right?
Yeah.
And like and then I did the most basic like sound cleaning I could think of, and it was just a stark contrast between all of them. And then this one was just like, wow, it sounds like I'm in a studio.
Yeah. It's just, I can tell like there's not as much reverb for sure.
Yeah.
It's noticeable.
So it makes me happy. So,
yeah. And I'm happy for you.
Yeah. If you want to see on my Twitter at Lord Neptune, you can see some pictures that I posted on there. If you're on the Creation Cast Discord. Yep. Check them out because this thing is a thing of beauty. I've got my art on the walls. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
No, I'm really excited, and I'm looking forward to future recordings in here, and I think it'll be really nice to have this space. Mm-hmm. And
get a table in there.
Get a table in here. I got plenty of room for a table, a couple chairs, and then maybe you can visit and we can record something cool in person.
Find some cool 2-player games and
heck yeah,
try them out.
I'm sure there's quite a few of them out there.
There are.
There's a whole podcast.
Right. Okay, well, all of that is it for announcements. Believe it or not, that's all. That's all we have. That's all we have. Just that.
Just that.
Join us after the episode for our calls to action and our reactions to this episode. For now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite system. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode my co-host Amelia and I are excited to welcome Dylan and Aram, the hosts of Kill Every Monster, a podcast covering the monsters of D&D.
Welcome to Character Creation Cast. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm so excited for this.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here. We're slowly bringing together all the aspects of playing a game of D&D. We got characters, we got monsters. I know some folks who do the magic podcasts.
Yeah, there you go.
There are world building people. Like eventually we will have
whole D&D.
We'll take it over.
Yes, we are the Avengers.
We're coming for you, Hasbro. Dylan, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, the kind of projects you have going on, and where people can find you online?
Sure.
Just one piece at a time.
No. You just reminded me of projects. So I am a grad student. So all of my projects are boring and hard, but also I do Kill Every Monster, where we, as mentioned, have some guests on and let them talk about their favorite monsters and how D&D sometimes just doesn't quite nail the design. Have a lot of fun with that one. You can find me on Twitter at DJ Malenfant.
And Aram, how about yourself?
And my name is Aram. You can find me on Twitter at Aram Vartian. I am the creator of God's Fall and the co-producer of Kill Every Monster, and also the editor of Total Party Throw, which is a podcast I enjoy a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Dylan and I have I forced him to do this during the pandemic, and because it was the pandemic, he was bored enough that he agreed. And now here we are.
Yep.
It is phenomenal.
In one small moment of a lapse of judgment.
in one small moment of a full year of staring at a blank wall.
Yeah. Yep. I was better than the abyss. That's what I like to say.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Seemed. Who seemed better than the Abyss.
Oh no. I do want to give all of our listeners a quick note about this series. Our questions are going to sound a little bit different from our usual boring list that we ask over and over again every time about every single game. Because we covered this game back in Series 1. So if you want to hear about basic rules as written D&D, you can go back to Series 1. This one, we are going to focus on the variety of supplements and variants and all of that you can do. So we're going to ask questions about what the system can do and what it can't.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into this. We're going to start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
All right. So rather than asking what the core concept of D&D is generally, especially with how well known the game is, what makes something D&D for you specifically?
So here's what makes something D&D for me. And I don't know if it's because of how D&D works or because D&D came first and video games came after it and D&D was a template. But when I play D&D, it feels like an analog video game. It feels like an analog fantasy video game. And no other role-playing game really feels that way, probably because those video games are built off how D&D works. But when you get a group of people who have only played those fantasy video games and you sit them down for the first time and you DM for them, and all of a sudden they get to that first dialogue tree and there's no tree. They can just talk. They can ask whatever they want. You can watch the light bulbs go off in a pretty unique way because it's such a direct path from what they were doing. And to me, that's what makes D&D special.
Yeah, I think that's actually, a lot of people talk about the fact that D&D is treated like an entry point, which from a, no other background perspective is a bad idea. It's 3 books long. The books are fairly convoluted. It's not really that straightforward to learn how to run the game.
So many games with easier rules.
Yeah.
So many.
But as Aram mentioned, because it's the template, it's actually easy to slot yourself into it, because though the mechanics are a little bit more of a pain to learn, you sort of already know them from just a cultural osmosis. So the only thing you're really introducing people to is that creativity aspect.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because you already have all of the touch points for here's how levels work and classes and
And the DM's still doing the math for them. So the computer is still running. For them, it's not that much of a shift for what they're doing. It's just, you're just basically freeing them up. You're just saying, okay, I'm taking off all the blockers you were facing before that you didn't even realize were holding you back from all this story.
Right.
I will say one of the major defining features for D&D for me, though, is labor asymmetry. Like, there are a lot of games that put different kinds of work on the players versus the DM. But D&D is a game that assumes the DM is going to do a lot more work.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And so 9 times out of 10, if I'm running a game where it's going to be fantasy based and the players are slotting into just a world and I'm going to tell a story based on their actions and I'm going to do all the work, that's what D&D is for.
Yeah. D&D is definitely where that that power balance comes from.
Right. Yeah.
This idea that I hate, that
great.
you just as a player just show up and a game happens at you and it's great. And I don't like that, but D&D really is set up for that. It's, the DM does all of the work of the world building and the stats for the monsters.
The birthplace of the DM screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bad idea. Stop using screens. Stop hiding information from your players.
Don't roll if you don't want the answer to be random. If you don't want the answer, don't roll. Only roll when you want it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if nothing's going to happen, don't make other people roll.
Don't roll. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than rolling and being like, no, you find nothing.
Yeah, you didn't hear it. So now you're in the exact same situation and nothing has changed.
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But you do know something was up because there was a roll that made.
But now you have to pretend you're not suspicious for no reason.
That weird video game thing is what creates that problem of metagaming. Metagaming is not a problem if everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
but
not
now
a
you've
dirty
created
word.
a But that metagaming where it's like, hold on, now you've told the players there's a problem and then followed it up by telling them, and there's no way you can ever deal with it.
Right, exactly.
Like D&D is a game with like 3 buttons, and if you've already pressed them all and you know there's a problem, sorry, bud, you pressed all your buttons.
Yep.
That's where you
Wait for
use
the ambush.
Eleanor's strategy, where she told me, did you know that if you're in a game and you're losing, you can just turn it off? That's some gamer strats for you.
100%
strategy.
I was like, great, you just quit.
Yep.
Problem solved.
Yeah, it is interesting that the whole idea of just playing games when they're fun. And if they're not fun, don't anymore. What a novel
Whoa.
concept.
I'm sorry. I don't understand.
Let me try one more time.
So we're not going to
Okay,
do a
but
D&D
that's
thing
not
anymore?
what the internet
and only
seems to
play
think.
things that are fun, because that's what games are for.
Well, I'm going to close these
It's a
books.
new concept.
No more D&D.
Okay. So then what is Reddit for? Then?
Reddit
Sadness.
is Reddit is for sadness. Reddit is where
Angry.
you go to be sad. You go to games to be fun and Reddit to be sad. It's a nice
Okay.
balance.
Yeah, great.
That's why they bounce back and forth so frequently.
Yep.
We know that base D&D is just like generic European fantasy with a bunch of other lore bits from all over the place mashed together like it doesn't matter. If you made your own branded setting and put your face on the cover, what would that setting be?
My face is on the cover.
You have to be
Or in the
you have
sleeve
to-
of the book.
Yeah,
Right,
either
I see
way.
what you're saying. My name's on it, right? It's not
Yes.
like, hey, come to Aram World.
Yeah,
Play
both.
Aram.
What is Aram World? Tell me.
Aram World would
It has
have,
really nice balconies.
Aram World would have to have really good universal health care. So let's start there.
All
Because
right.
otherwise, Aram World is going to collapse very quickly. And also, Aram World, oh my God, Aram World would need so many extra signs to just get people around in Aram
This is
World.
a world book. We're not building a world where you won't die.
No. Aram, so like Aram, right? Like if the whole world like works like me. I lived in DC for over 20 years. I used public transportation the entire time. Every time I got off a metro stop, there would be like, like in the old iPhones where to reorient the map, you had to make like that circle 8 motion, right? I had to physically like turn around until my magnetism
So
really,
like, you get on the train. The train only goes one direction. It's on a track.
It's underground. I don't know where that is. But we're underground.
Like
It
you
could be
can't
anywhere.
feel like
No, it's dark and we're in tunnels. I could be going up. Who possibly could know?
Okay, so Aram World does not have underground transportation.
Oh, no, it does. It's just that once we get above ground, we just like, there's like a bunch of helpful signs saying, hello, Aram, this is where you need to go. Like Aram World needs an iPhone for everyone who's walking. Like we need directions for walking. Because that's what I
So
do.
you got some high tech D&D stuff going on here.
We need Google Glass, man. That's what we need.
Magitech, right?
Yeah.
You've got some. You would probably have to add a healing cantrip.
Yes.
Because Lord knows D&D needs one of those.
It would be. It'd be that thing that Link has. Every one of us would have that little sprite following us around, just keeping us from dying.
Oh, there you go.
That's not what that's for in Zelda.
Nope.
I've never
Fundamental misunderstanding of how this game works.
I have never played a Zelda game. Is that clear? I just thought that was a helpful sprite.
Technically, from the original Zelda
helpful.
series, finding a fairy would give you full health. So.
It's just Tinkerbell, right? That's what I assumed. Am I way off?
No, you're right. Except it's usually like in the game where there was a fairy following you
Isn't it,
around
like,
all the
really
time.
annoying?
It just told you about what enemies do. It was giving you warnings. It was heads up.
And it
I kinda
always
need
said,
that.
hey, listen.
It did not heal you ever.
No.
It was your buddy.
It just said, hey, listen. And
Well,
now you
what
have
kind of friend
traumatic
doesn't
stress
heal
with
you?
it.
Yeah, I could really use
Most
a
of
friend
them.
that tells me where danger is. I mean, that would be really helpful.
It would be helpful.
Yeah, then I wouldn't have fallen down those stairs and broken my hand last year.
Yeah.
That's true.
Stairs are dangerous.
Yeah.
What does Dylan World look like?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
It's all farm adjacent.
honestly do think more farms are good and more food is good. We should talk about food more. But
Food's great.
if I'm building like a D&D game, I'm not adding stuff. I'm taking a scalpel to it. Like there's a bunch of stuff in D&D that has weird implications. Like I'm not a fan of the bard just ambiently existing without any explanation. the fact that magic somehow translates into music is clearly a huge world building thing and should be a factor in the world. So when one character randomly shows up, like, yeah, I studied for years. I can cast fireball. I can do all these interesting things. I have the blood of a dragon in me. Oh, well, I channel my power through a god, and that allows me to shoot lightning. And one guy's like, yeah, I learned a couple of Beatles tracks and I can make that 30-foot sphere explode.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that like D&D has so many books, but
and
like there's still so much missing.
The things that are there.
Because like, you know, like as somebody who has read a ton of L5R stuff, that one suffers from the problem of like too much lore that overlaps each other and kind of undoes other things. But D&D somehow like just like there are things that are still just not explained at all.
It feels like it wants to be a framework, right? It wants to be a place that has these concrete building blocks with a whole bunch of space between them.
But they're like all hollow inside.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you fill them up yourself, right?
And the other major issue you run into is because of that asymmetry I brought up before, you're also presenting the framework to the wrong people. Like if you're building a world and you say, hold on, like I said, I don't have a problem with someone playing a bard in my game. That is fine. But like if I were to try to like hollow it down and I'm like, well, I don't really like the way bards work. I don't want to have that be a feature of the world. The players have already seen it. They were told that the rules of the game are bards exist.
Right.
So now I'm the monster who's sitting there telling you, no, I'm going to take toys away from you because the game made a world that didn't make sense. And I was told to make a narrative experience that would make sense. And I can't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really have to have players that are on board with, you know, like you have to have those kinds of conversations before you've invited people to a game. And you have to like have players that are really willing to sort of narrow down, you know, their options and follow along with that vision and trust that vision. And not everybody is.
Like most games that don't create that dynamic, that don't have that separation, are going to have you do a session 0 where you talk about the world. And if somebody comes to me and says, I want to play a bard, well, okay, cool. Then I will make sure this is a world where that makes sense.
Sure.
But if nobody made a bard at character creation, my base assumption is that there aren't any.
Right. Like, what would you add to your world, Dylan?
No, I would take
guillotines. That's what I would add. Guillotines all along the border.
Kill the bards.
You can still have bards, just not magical.
You can have bards. I don't want bards.
And there wouldn't be a reason to play them as a player character because they would just be people that sit in taverns and it's fine.
Right. You just throw coins at them. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
but
that's
and then they become rogues or rangers, and they fit into like an archetype that already is fairly natural in the world. Whereas like
if you're gonna have something where it's like you sing and that becomes magic, then song has to somehow be magic, and that has to be an important element in your game.
Or you have the thing where like all of the subclasses for bard are labeled as colleges, which means that it's an education-based thing, which means it's a type of wizard.
Right. So what are wizards? Exactly.
So what are like why are those not related? So you're a music wizard now, and you made your casting class stat charisma, but like why aren't these
theater wizard actually?
I studied musical theater.
But also you're rather roguish and handy with a rapier. So like you know.
Right. So you can do stage combat.
It's like it is a jack of all trades thing. So like it should fit. It's just that part of like that one part where like D&D doesn't ever want to do the work of ecology with its monsters, with its magic, with its items, with its land. It never like a dragon. How much land does it take up? How much room does it need? How many other dragons could be nearby? What does that push out? What is that, you know, like what, all these things that they want to exist in a world cannot exist in a world. There's not room for everything. So what's the conflict? How does that work out? Are there portals? Are there other, like, give us some idea of
and there's
how
nothing in
these
the
things
front of the book that is like, here are 5 lists, pick 3 from each to build your world.
There is one time they do that. They do that with races. They say these are the standard fantasy races, and if you want
react to elves,
well, because let's be racist.
Right. That's
and
what
if you want to do half orcs, those are optional, and if you want to do half elves, those are optional. If you want to do a tiefling, that's an option. If you want to do gnomes, those are optional, which they shouldn't be. They should just be discarded. Gnomes are terrible. Just make your halfling a wizard, you coward.
Tell us how you really feel,
He
Dylan.
really hates gnomes.
I don't like gnomes.
Come up
What?
several times.
I have objections
Here's the
to
thing
bards.
is that, like,
I don't like
somehow
gnomes.
I already knew that you didn't like gnomes. Like, has that come up on?
Probably.
It
Okay.
was
Come up a couple
definitely
times.
100% on Kill Every Monster.
Okay, because I was like, somehow before we recorded, like, I already know you don't like gnomes.
Yeah. It was a big discussion point.
It's all efficiency.
In
like
your
key.
design,
Yeah.
do it with a purpose. If
Right.
you want to make gnomes, like there is nothing a gnome does in world building that is not a halfling that learned cantrips.
Right.
He's got a
So
point.
don't put them there. Like
Right.
don't make
Well,
your
But
world
D&D,
more
like, but, like-
complicated for no reason.
How will we make more books?
Right. Well, D&D's about the numbers, right?
Right.
It's like you said, it's like the video games that we've grown up with and love that also don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to have enemies to fight.
And this
And
is
the
part
enemies
of
have to
why,
be
like,
varied.
we
Yeah.
talked about this going in, that you guys wanted to feature supplements a lot. But one of the things that I keep coming back to is I built a character for a game with Aram once. And I built myself an orc, and I did it by saying, Aram, I'm going to say I'm an orc, but I'm going to play a human.
Yeah.
Because you can pick a feat. And the moment you start picking feats, like if you told me you get a +2, a +1, and a feat, I could build a character in any race in D&D, because if I say I'm short and I pick magic initiate, well, guess what? I just made a gnome.
Yeah.
That's it. If I say I'm
100%.
tall and I pick magic initiate, I'm a high elf now.
Because the differences are so small.
They're
yeah.
so small.
And half of them don't like mechanically matter. It's
Right.
just
No.
like a descriptive thing.
The feat matters more because the feat tells you what they have done until now. Like, I'm a crossbow expert. I'm really good with this. Why? Because of this. I was in
Because
this
of my
army, or
training, because it's
whatever, yeah.
important to my culture, and I grew up as a hunter, because of the only difference between building a human that is an air quotes elf and building an actual elf per the rules is dark vision.
Yep, that's it. We have bad eyes. That's it. Humans have bad eyes. Yeah, there's
well,
that.
as we just finished discussing, all of us are wearing glasses and our headphones are smushing our faces.
There's that fantastic scene in Farscape where they're all in a room and the one human's like, my eyes are fine. Like, read that sink. And every single person can read the label from across the room. And the camera shows the sink. And because it's us humans watching it, we're just seeing a sink. We can't even see the label. It's just showing us the sink. But all of them are reading the label right off.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would do with a D&D book is I would either start organizing it into things that become optional so that you can build a world that feels coherent to the story you want to tell, or I would just pick what I wanted to do and I would cut the stuff that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. There is a supplement that came out last year called Ancestry and Culture
Yeah.
that takes apart like races and is like, these things are not necessarily inherent to races, but like, you know, like who your parents were and where you grew up. You know, we talked about like learning crossbow and like all of that kind of stuff is more about how you were raised than like who you are as a race. And so I think there are certainly people, when we talk about supplements, especially people who are like, no, this is dumb and we can fix it and make it also less racist while we're at it.
I also want to quickly plug An Elf and an Orc Had a Little Baby by VJ Harris and Adam Hancock, which is a fantastic book, again, about races and half races and, you know, all of those stuff, because so much of it is dependent on what you learn and what the people around you valued. It is not a trivial thing.
Well, right. It's like, I think about like, you know, like I'm white and like, you know, Irish, and like, I'm sure that I'm not the only like Irish white person around, but like my learned experience and cultural experience is still totally different from, you know, like somebody else even next door to me.
Also white and Irish, but I grew up on a farm in Canada versus
in the suburbs outside of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Very different experiences.
My best friend growing up, I would go over to his house and the garage door would roll up and there'd be a deer just hanging there, right? That they had gone and shot that morning. That was, we were literally like a block apart, but our lives were 100% different. We're raised the same school, same income level, same everything.
Right.
Completely different people, you know?
Exactly. You know, it's like we're just having that discussion too. It's like my parents are very, very conservative and, you know, your parents are not like just totally, but like we're still in America. So
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't think. Well, that's like a whole conversation for another time. Is race in D&D, and
and we are not qualified to talk about that.
We are not the people to discuss that. Yes,
I will point out frequently that it is a problem.
I mean, I do feel very qualified to say it's bad. I feel qualified enough to do that.
That's
not a whole lot more, but enough to be like this, not this.
Yeah. That anytime we get specific, we go to someone and say, hello, your exact, personal experience, please come and educate us because we don't know. And fortunately, people have been very kind in order to do so.
I really love the kinds of discussions that you both are having on your show about, like some of the problems of those monsters and the way things are coded and, like that kind of stuff. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
The amount of depth we got out of a show concept that was, I'm annoyed and want to complain.
Yeah. Right. Hey, this D&D book is bad. Want to talk about it?
And we're geared for it, right? Like we're ready to have those conversations. Right. And we have still had moments where we are completely blindsided because we just weren't paying enough attention. The dragon turtle is a perfect example. We both went in thinking, it's a dragon turtle. It's just a turtle dragon. It's a fun thing, whatever. It's just a monster. Not even considering the fact that of course it has huge cultural tie-ins, for thousands of years that we just blazingly.
It's Bowser. Which one is the Godzilla monster? Gamora.
Not Gamora.
No, Gamora is the green lady.
Gamera. Like there's all these, and then of course beyond that, there's cultural tie-ins for like 1,000 years, right? And we just didn't know. And Glyza was like, actually, it was so nice about it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think even like the hag and things like that, like my son used the word hag and I was like, actually, that's like super sexist. Do not use that word. And he was like, I didn't know that. And I was like, well, let's have a discussion about how we talk about women who are, like not super pretty and not, but like I said, it's just like they took all kinds of cultural touchstones and were like, what if we put them all in a book? That's not racist, right? If we put everything in there, we just like pile it on top of each other, then it's like technically represented, right?
It's all stuck in the doorway. It can't possibly be racist.
Right? Like what do you mean? We put something of everybody's in there. It's fine.
It's the 16-year-old white boy mentality of I can't be racist. I hate everyone. Like, yeah, you're right. That did help. That certainly made the situation better. Way to go, pal.
Yep.
Way
to go, Chet.
Yep.
So most games of Dungeons and Dragons require the player's handbook, some polyhedral dice, pencil friends, blah, 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 blah.
Pizza, Mountain Dew.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. Do you have any other tools or accessories that you would recommend or any that you think are just kind of cool to check out?
For me, and I hate to say it, because it is additional cost. And I hate to tell people to spend additional money, especially when they've already bought books. For me, a person with severe ADHD who has a lot of trouble learning from books, having D&D Beyond has been a revolutionary tool to allow me to play this game.
We talked about it a ton in our first episode. Like you are not the only one to say that. Like there's a solid 10 minutes in there where we're like, let me tell you about D&D Beyond.
And you say don't like people spending money and stuff, but like people have dice and so much dice and they just keep buying dice and it's fine. I do the same thing.
Have I bought to do
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And it is a different thing. A lot of people are like, well, just wrap it into the cost. I'm like, the amount of effort people put into making D&D Beyond work is considerable. You can't just ignore that cost.
And the amount of stuff that people put in there, because there's tons of adventures and supplements and all that you get access to.
A lot more accessible than the physical books in a lot of cases.
And it's nice to just have a trove of it all in one place too.
Agreed.
To not have to again with the ADHD, if you make me hunt it down, I will give up.
When I sat down at D&D Live and the cameras were on me for the first time and I have to D&D a game in front of a lot of people and I was scared. And the fact that I could do it from an iPad and had everything I needed and it worked, the whole adventure, I could run it, could roll the dice, could know everyone's hit points. I could just do it. And that was amazing. That was revolutionary to me.
Yeah.
I literally needed nothing else to make a whole game work.
The idea of having to add and subtract on camera really just gives me hives.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. I turned to one of the players 5 minutes before the cameras went live and they actually said, do I have any discernible talent? Like that. That was the question I asked.
Dylan.
It wasn't Dylan, otherwise that's the answer I would have gotten. But it would have
Just
helped.
the pep talk you needed.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and it's too late. Start working.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Camera's going.
What about you, Dylan? Do you have stuff that you use or like?
I annoy Aram because
I love him always. No matter what he does, I love him always. I just pretend he does for the show.
Because despite being a child with a driver's license younger than him, literally true. I like analog. D&D Beyond is massively convenient. I will not argue with that. It's great for a lot of people. Note cards.
Love
Just note cards and a pen. Like if you can write down the name of an NPC and a couple little things and throw it in the middle of the table so your players have it, just like making it so that all of the resources are immediately available to all your players in a way that is instantly accessible. Because like still with D&D and Roll20, you do have to build sheets or like figure out how to work with the interface, make everything. So yeah, if I go into a new room and I'm like, all right, listen, combat's about to start. You're in a big ballroom. Here are the 3 resources that are immediately apparent in the room. You know, there's a balcony up there. There's this chandelier that you can clearly see has the ability to drop. And there's this. And I'll just throw those 3 cards out of there and just like, now they are on the table. You can see that they exist. It makes things a little bit more real. So,
yeah. I think when I'm playing games in person and when I, you know, very, very rarely run games in person, I like to have like physical things. I know when I've run L5R in the past, I have people like if I have characters that are using magic, they get cards that say like what each spell does so that it's like right in front of you and you can look at it. Like having those kind of physical handouts are super helpful. It's much harder online. And in which case like dice rollers and like all of that kind of stuff is really nice. But
interfaces always add a layer. There's always a little bit of difficulty, a little bit of hesitation. And when you're playing a game, every little hesitation adds up. So that it is really nice to have an analog thing where you're like, boom, here it is. And everyone instantly understands it.
Yeah. And it's nice to have, I mean, that is one nice thing about D&D Beyond, though, is that it's a sort of agreed upon thing that everybody uses. You know, it's not like, oh, I use this dice roller and character sheet thing. I use this one. It's like everybody who plays D&D is like, this is the one we're all in.
That's the opposite side. Like when I do OBS layouts, right? I take the extra time to do nothing else but use Roll20 dice to green screen out the background and have those dice roll live over the OBS layout so that I see it, the players see it, the audience sees it all at the same time. We all react at the same time. In that case, it brings us together. But the effort to get us there takes a lot.
It definitely, it's a lot of extra work.
It doesn't D&D Beyond have it where only like one person needs to have the full thing for a campaign?
You can have an assigned DM, which doesn't actually have to be the DM of the campaign. So just like if one of your players already has the account, do it. Can share all of their resources with the rest of the party.
Yeah. So if a group that was going to be playing together for decades, say, and they buy into that, only one person needs to just shovel everything into that one account, and now your whole group is set.
Right,
that's
true.
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
As long as you're all friends, as long as you don't break out, you're like, oh, I invested in all this D&D Beyond,
And then your group falls apart, and then
make it a buyout cost. Stop being our friends, then we'll have
like some stock options. And
but if I burn this bridge, I won't have all those books anymore.
Yeah, right. I have to stay friends with this person.
Just want to make a real quick recommendation. This is something Grant Howlett had suggested was you can make location little tents. Just fold a note card in half, label it with the location. But if you're doing this in prep, you can also label all of those features of interest on a second tent and just leave it under there. So if you're ever doing an investigation campaign or something where they can move to different locations and you just want to have those things immediately available, you just have them out on the table. Like, okay, cool. So you're going to the cathedral. Okay, well, here's all the things you need to know about the cathedral. And then
that's really smart.
They're
that
already
sounds like
there.
way more prep than Grant would ever do.
I know.
Well, see, it's advice. It doesn't mean that
right,
Grant
it doesn't mean he did. Okay.
To be fair, it was also
sorry, Grant. We love you.
It was also advice Grant made for running a game or like specifically a scenario that he wrote for a book.
Oh, okay.
So this is stuff that was a little easier to.
I was like, I've played in your games before. I don't.
Writing something down, writing something ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of note cards, my kids just got these 4x6 blank cardstock cards that are for like photo backing.
Yeah.
And it's just like a stack full of them, like a couple hundred of these cards. And like, these are perfect for like notes, for drawing out a little map, for, all these little things that you can do in a game. And I'm like, I got to get some of these for myself because this is fantastic. Totally. It's like a little bit more utility than a note card because note cards are, they're itty bitty at times. But
you can buy bigger ones.
You can, but now you got to find those and
Staples.
Max or Staples. Or
they're usually right next to the regular ones.
Sometimes probably like Target.
Okay. To be fair, I haven't shot for note cards since college. And
How are you living your life?
I still have them.
Yeah, but you've been down that aisle of a CVS since then, right?
I honestly don't play in person as much as I need to. So like most of my notes are electronic.
I also don't see people frequently.
I also just really like note cards. This has nothing to do with the amount of people I see. I haven't gone anywhere in 2.5 years, but I love note cards.
I'm in this impossible position where I absolutely love paper and paper stuff, right? But I am so ADHD that if it's not digital, it doesn't have any use to me because it will just get up in a doom box and be lost. It's not functional. So I love paper, but it's just bad for me.
It's good for instantaneous reminders that you immediately throw out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dylan, I think this is the question that you were waiting for too. What kinds of themes do you think D&D is best at? And which ones does it just not do?
Literally only progression. D&D is a system that starts you at level 1, which kind of sucks, and ends at level 20, which is essentially apotheosis. But otherwise...
If you get there.
Yeah, if you get there. But otherwise, there's a lot that we've developed around it since like we've built a huge culture around role-playing and like the creativity aspects of it. But when you look at the design of D&D, it is meant to go from room to room, bashing the monster on the head until you're a god. That's it. It is exceptionally bad at horror. Stop trying to run horror games in D&D, you little gremlin monsters.
Yep, it is the worst possible setup for horror.
Why?
D&D is about power. It is literally just about increasing your ability to kill the opponent. And there is no exit to conflict aside from death.
Yep.
Like the game is occasionally like, and award your players experience if they happen to find a non-combat solution to the encounter. And they never give an example.
If they happen to find it, but like...
They don't give an example for what that means or how you would use any of your abilities.
I feel like the people writing it are like, email me if you think of something.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
We're looking for ideas.
We could put out a 4th book of non-combat solutions, but...
That's the only way, though.
So you roll for persuasion, you roll for intimidate. If those fail, then
you roll for
only
initiative.
got one button left and you roll for initiative.
Yeah. Yep. No, and that's the thing. Like for horror to work, you need to feel like the entire thing is a feeling of powerlessness, of being up against something that you cannot handle. But in D&D, the base assumption is that there is a way around this. I can handle it, which means you're going to die, which means the DM now has to, a good DM is going to realize their players aren't backing down and try to dial it back. But now you've dialed back the threat, which means it's no longer scary, which means your players win, which means you did not achieve horror. You achieved a conflict with a monster.
D&D is set up for you to have 4 fights a day and then rest. That is how the mechanics are set up. That is not how you fight a werewolf in real life. It's just not how you do it.
In real life, when you fight a werewolf.
Yes, in real life.
Listen,
when you fight a werewolf.
So Diana gets rabies. We got to take her down. Like,
it's just like, what are you going to do? We talked about it. Diana knows. Yeah, absolutely.
He's ready.
But
he knows.
And because that's how the game is set up, it purposely nerfs horror. Werewolves are an excellent example. That werewolf is weak, and it is weak because it is easy to become a werewolf. And if all your party is now werewolves and they're incredibly strong, it wrecks the game. Zombies are not zombies. As we discussed, they do not infect you and cause it to rapidly spread, because then there would be no zombies, or there would be all zombies, and we can't have that, because that's not a stable thing for D&D to put in a book.
You know that your fighter is gonna get bitten.
Yep.
And hide it.
Not tell anybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Magic.
And then he's gonna hide in the dark corner of a
the
tavern.
The person who's gonna hide it is the low-level paladin who doesn't have immunity to disease yet. That's who's gonna hide it.
And can I just say, now that we're talking about zombies, now I'm going to put us on a little bit of a tangent. There was a Twitter thread going around. If a zombie is animated, can its ghost haunt the animated corpse? And now can you have the ghost and the zombie body in the same encounter?
That's interesting.
So
right?
I
because
think
the ghost and the soul is detached from the zombie.
Yeah.
The body itself, the body is just a husk that can be reanimated through magic.
Which we do know that, like, the soul is off doing being a butler in butler heaven, right?
Yeah, so now the soul comes down as a ghost to haunt this area, the same area that its animated corpse is in.
Okay.
And now you've got this ghost, like, just watching its body walk around mindlessly.
How does
That's gotta be weird.
Because the corpse is being animated by something else, obviously.
Yeah. Magic, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. So
here's
I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah,
to
I'm
think
totally
about
on board
that.
for all of that. I like that quite a lot. Yeah.
100%.
So here's the other thing that's real fun about ghosts, specifically in D&D. They're bound. Ghosts do not come into being. You make ghosts. They have to be bound somewhere. So like that could, of course, be you die while having some sort of mystical attachment that just doesn't break right. But it isn't the thing where in a grisly murder, a normal peasant becomes a ghost. So it is actually a situation where you have to engineer this. And it's part of why they cast necromancy as evil, because the thing you've done now is you found a dead person. You animated their body to just be living and hungry and murderous. And then you grabbed their soul and tied it to a thing in a way that immediately corrupts the soul to make it hate everyone around it. And you've just created this terrible compound monster.
Yeah. You've also just described you, though.
Yeah.
So
No, I am an
balance.
empty meat husk haunted by a ghost that doesn't particularly want to be here.
There you go.
I want to give one more reason D&D is bad at horror. It's quantized magic. Magic exists in spell slots, in discreetly described spells, and you can't do eldritch horror with magic that is clearly defined.
Unless you rewrite the rules.
Unless you completely rewrite the rules.
Supplements do.
Which
technically still part of rules as written, because right in the
Someone
DM's
wrote
guide,
them.
Do whatever you want, because
terrible
that's
cop out.
up to
Don't
you.
care what's in the book.
I really hate when books do that. I really hate it.
I could literally hand you a guide on tic-tac-toe and start it with, but add whatever you want. And it's the same exact thing.
But what do I know?
I could play chess and tell you that this is my homebrew hack of tic-tac-toe, and you can't tell me I'm wrong because the DMG said this was fine.
It might even be true.
It might.
That might have happened that way.
Yeah, where the
It's like
axes
in
move
Star
like
Trek.
L's.
Maybe he invented transparent aluminum. Who knows?
But it's still D&D.
It's also D&D.
It's just D&D with spaceship and whales and Vulcans, but it's still D&D.
Yep.
Okay, but let's discuss how I have the Stargate role-playing game, which is in 5e.
100%. Yep. So many games are made in 5e.
Whatever you want.
What was the one
Which doesn't
recently
make
where they
sense.
were like,
Dark Souls.
they wanted to, it was Dark Souls. And I was like, okay, yes. As soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, Dark Souls 5e, that makes complete perfect sense. I don't know why anyone's upset. I think this is a great analogy.
So aside from just adventuring, what kinds of things do you think GMs should have their characters do in Dungeons and Dragons?
Play a different game.
Die.
Right.
There aren't rules for anything that isn't adventuring. Anything you do that isn't adventuring is not in the D&D book, and you're making it up as you go along.
But it'd be like a good shopping montage.
Which you should do.
And that is good. That is fine. Do a lot of downtime. Have those conversations. There aren't enough things to spend money in 5th edition. Let your players buy a house and have a place that they operate out of and build these things up. Like those world building 100%. Things are phenomenal. And those are also a great time to realize that there are other games that have written these small, highly directed experiences. And legitimately, in the middle of D&D, when you have a session that you have to deal with a bit of story that isn't adventuring, play a different game for a bit.
Mm-hmm. I love when there are like those breaks between D&D adventures and people bring in like other games or like rules from other games to run social interactions or things like that. I'm a big fan of players going to parties to like meet different people and have different like, and then kind of from there pick what adventure they want to go on based on who they meet and what they talk about and stuff like that.
I'm going to timestamp this recording real quick. Last week was the last episode of Campaign, I believe, where James D'Amato was running concurrently a session in Genesis and then doing flashbacks to a game of Starcrossed by Alex Roberts, which is phenomenal. And if you haven't bought Starcrossed yet, you're wrong. Fix it.
Series 3 covered it. It was great.
But that's the thing. Is like sometimes there are bits of the story where just do a different thing. Yeah, serve your needs.
It's phenomenal. The way that they just easily blended that in.
So good.
It's fantastic.
Like,
and
who's editing that show right now? Is it Tracy or Casey?
It's both right now.
Well, the general setup of James, Tracy, and Casey, that whole thing was magnificent. Seriously, good work, folks.
Phenomenal. Yep.
The other thing about it is it ties back to what we were talking earlier. If D&D is now the video game analogy, every fantasy video game has the little side quest games that are different games than the core game. So it's the perfect analog example of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you go fishing in any Zelda game, it's like a completely different game than
mini game.
Like actually doing combat or anything like that.
And the break is welcome. You're like, this is nice. You know what? I don't want to grind. I just want to fish for the next 2 hours. It's peaceful. It's fun on its own. Yeah.
Yep. In between every round in Mario Party, you've got to go and do your little mini game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Obviously, everybody knows that well-known campaign of Mario Party.
I can't agree with Dylan more that having. Sorry, my brain fell in my head. What was that first part you said about?
Doing like basically doing kingdom building out like the house of the players because they don't have a way to spend their money once they've bought full plate.
As soon as you can possibly give your players a base, whether it's a boat, whether it's a house, whether it's like whatever it is, you give them a base and that is going to generate story. They are going to decorate it. They're going to care about it. They're going to care about the people who live around it or who operate it. It instantly invests them in an area like nothing else can.
We're going to sidetrack into DM advice here. One of the worst pieces of advice that people give that is also good advice is take things away from your players. You cannot, like if you give your players a magic sword and then you have someone steal it, that's a great motivator, but you've made the players really, really angry. It's something that was on their character sheet. It feels sacred to them. But if they have a house, if they have a butler and you break in or you attack them or they own a castle and they lay siege to it and you knock over a tower, there's now a quest attached to that. I have to repair this, or someone came into our home and our privacy was violated, but it feels less sacrosanct to the player because it was a piece on the board. It's not part of them. It was an object they own. Making possessions external.
Right. It doesn't change their abilities in the game.
Yeah.
Right. But it's still a violation that needs to be answered.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've created something that works really, really well for story hooks.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you're emotionally attached to.
Right.
Especially in something like D&D where it doesn't naturally build those bonds.
No.
Like it does, there are other games where you ask all of those like relationship questions in the beginning or, like you're sort of like grounded in the setting or with the NPCs.
In the backstory, they can kill all the parents they want. They can't kill their mortgage. It's still going to be there.
That's painfully true.
Capitalism, worst enemy of D&D.
Yes, all my characters are orphans, actually, and all their friends,
Remember,
too.
all of your adventures are actually kind of terrible. You are the worst capitalists. You have so much money, you can't figure out how to spend it. You could lift an entire town out of poverty, and you decided that you were going to get a sword that shoots fire and occasionally turns into a plate.
I don't want to.
Why don't you build a rocket ship instead of solving world hunger?
Yeah, I don't want to cure cancer, Dylan. I want a sword that fires lightning bolts and speaks to me and is condescending.
Exactly.
I want a condescending sword, Dylan.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. No, that's the reason why I love like games like Beyond the Wall. I play that with my local group, and you start off the game, you make your village. You, like, part of character creation is you get this thing, now define an NPC. You get this thing, now define a place that may or may not relate to that thing. And now you've got a village to start off with. That's your home base. You go to the campaign setting, you're building all the major locations and minor locations of everything around your village. And now you've got this world that every single player at that table is super invested in.
How much does your party stay in one place, right? Like, if you don't give them a home base, Amelia's completely right. There are other games that do it better in terms of building intra-party bonds. But you're inherently going to have a bond with all the other players because they are the only constant in your experience. Put them somewhere. Give them a house. They now have to come back, and there are NPCs that they will bond with. There are people that they will see repeatedly, instead of going to the newest dungeon where the gnolls should just be all murdered until you get to the chest at the bottom that isn't a mimic, I promise. And then you go back.
Well, and how many games have we played where, like, the players get really, like a DM makes up this NPC and then the players get weirdly attached to them.
Always.
Right. So give them a house in a town and then that NPC can live there instead of having to go along on every single adventure. They're going to do it anyway.
What? Kyle, the 12-year-old NPC, got his house burned down by a dragon? Kyle, you live with us now. Go to my house. I sent Kyle to the PC.
Yeah, Kyle can dog sit while we go on our adventure.
And it's like, I think the reason why a lot of DMs get hung up on this is because D&D is inherently a game that was built in its bones about killing something, getting gold. Gold is experience. Gold equals advancement. So any time where like there's gold involved, even if it's like theoretical gold, like a base of operations, there's a theoretical amount of gold involved that even if like you found it was willed to you by the nice old man that you saved, right? Whatever it is, there's still gold attached, and they get hung up on this idea of the gold because, again, so much of D&D is defensive. Well, they could sell that house and make 50,000 gold and then buy +2 armor, and now you've unbalanced the game. So much of D&D is around that mindset, which I think is very dumb and really doesn't really exist.
So here's a question though, like, because it's very clear that D&D started that way and obviously has evolved by the time we've gotten to 5th edition. And then especially when you start adding in all of these other things people are making that are trying to do all of these different things, like how do we reconcile that? Like, how do you reconcile the fact that, like, gold is still kind of considered, but like, we don't really use it. Like, you never really buy anything, like, how do you make all of that work? It's
all in Wizards' hands because they put out.
Okay, well then never mind.
Yeah, we're a little screwed because this whole surge of books being written, right? Like, this happened with the old open license. Aram, do you remember OGL, right? Yeah. Yep. The OGL had so many like books for 3.5, but at the end of the day, the way the core rule books get written is they are refinements and adjustments to how the core mechanics of D&D work. They haven't been adding new things. They've been adding new classes, but every book is skills and how to do murders and how to do combat. And then someone else will release a new book.
They've also been making it worse. Like, you're talking about, like, maybe they could fix the problem, but they have decidedly made it worse by releasing things like the College of Creation Bard, who can make any non-magical material. So now we're talking about bards that can pump out diamonds and emeralds and other things to make all of the limitations on these spells that existed before not a problem at all anymore. So now there's no limitations on actual materials. None of it makes any sense, but because it's so tied into things like you still need the diamonds to resurrect, and you still, like, it doesn't matter at all. It's completely ephemeral, but it still matters. They still haven't written it out of the rules. They've just weakened it further and further.
Yeah. But it seems though like they want to embrace sort of this culture that's happening around D&D where people are making things. I mean, like, they want to embrace the like critical roles and the, you know, like all of that kind of stuff that like as not so much like a company, but like, you know, on this cultural level of D&D, they're like, yeah, it's great that you can do anything. Like they're more than happy to be like, yeah, everything is D&D.
Oh yeah, you can do anything you want in D&D. Build Star Wars D&D, build Arkham Horror D&D.
Right.
But they're not doing anything with the rules to really like assist with that.
Here's the problem. So the book says you can do anything you want. And when it's a book, that works great. People read the book. They make whatever decisions they want. But that's not what D&D is as a company anymore. They just bought D&D Beyond for a reason. They've been pushing towards digital for a reason. This whole everyone being at home just kicked that forward. They're going to be a digital production company that makes things for an online experience that also has books. So the fact that they have to now force these things to work digitally, to work through computers and screens, they're just going to get more tied down into gold pieces and numbers and digits because they have to, because of the medium they're working with.
Right, because you can't narrative stats.
Like
harder to hand wave.
One of the handful of like 4th edition did a lot of things right. It had a lot of good things. It had a lot of problems. One of the problems was it was built specifically for Adventure League, which is almost a diluted version of this. I need to make sure that when my players wander into their game store on whatever night it was, that their character is going to work, even if this is a new game store. So everything had gold piece values.
It's specifically for characters between this level and this level. And by the end of the adventure, they get this reward and level up this much.
Yep. And they can buy these items and blah, 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 blah. And 5th edition, because people got mad about that, is a complete reversal where now instead of everything having a monetary value, nothing has a monetary value. You should be able to finish the game with your starting equipment. We're not going to balance monsters around you having magic items. And that's our solution now. The only thing D&D has ever done has made sure that money doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. That's it.
Either by making it part of the actual experience of like, this is now a resource that your character is really meant to spend and isn't meant to build out the world more, or by straight up just going like, we'll keep giving you money, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Like still making it the reward for everything, but not valuable.
Yeah, right. But not valuable, which frankly is the only... which is a good thing in the end, because the other way this could have gone is that D&D just said it's very, very valuable, and here's how you can spend real money to get it. So at least we dodged that bullet.
Right. So my question is, when are we getting the supplement or interior decorating?
It should be immediate.
Okay, so Marvel Superheroes has like, what do we find out, 60 pages or something to building your base. It doesn't matter.
Picking living room sets.
Wondrous items are the best part of D&D. Hands down, no mechanical benefits.
I love those books when I get them, when they show up in like my Ennies stuff. There was one that was like a grimoire, like the Gemhammer grimoire, I think last year, that had like, it's just like a whole book of magical items just for funsies.
Just cool things.
I love them.
You built a house for your players? Great. Here's how much it costs to put in a suit of armor that's also your butler.
Right. Like there was one where it was a coin, and if you drop it, for every like 10 feet it falls, when it hits the ground, it makes a ding. It's this little thing. So like, how deep is this well? Well, you're not gonna get your coin back, but you'll know how deep the well is.
Yeah.
Right. Little teeny things like that.
That's so cool. I love stuff like that.
There was someone on the Discord for Kill Every Monster who was talking about like, hey, I have this shield that I made like for my game. It's a +2 shield. I'm going to give it stuff where it can like grow vines and reach out and do stuff. And he's like, so what other abilities can I give it? And I was, make it a table. It grows 4 limbs. And occasionally it'll just set itself up as like a desk and it'll walk behind you. And now it's your shield. And also it's a pet. And now it's the best item in the game.
Yep. If you can make it a pet, it's great.
Yeah, the moment your shield decides that it's going to help by trying to pull the cart, but your shield isn't strong enough to pull the cart. So it's just like straining at the thing. Legs are just going like Sonic. It's like adorable. That's the bit that people will remember. Make more items. Like you could build an entire interior decorating thing that is just items to that effect, and they'd be magical.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing is like I would love that, and then I would love one about like throwing parties.
Yes. Yeah, throwing parties in D&D is great. Having a ball, you can do a whole episode about a ball.
Like I would love a whole section on like, you can do, this is why in Strata there's a fashion section, because I told Grant I wanted it. But it's like I want to know what the fashions are that everybody's wearing. I want to know what kind of foods they're eating. I want to know what the decor is. I want to know what weird cultural thing is happening right now everybody has to act on.
I want one sheet per character that is how the abilities you unlock. Like, you can give me a level 1 to 20 and I don't have to know that going in. It doesn't have to be in the player's handbook, but at the start of the session, like, you're going to go to a party. Here's the things that a fighter knows, and this is what you can do at a party. You've unlocked up to your level. Go.
Yeah, these are your party skills. Like, you know this dance move now. Like, you know the latest gossip
I would
about.
be so happy to burn an entire session doing a repeat character creation of, like, based on what you've done in game.
Just for the party.
Here are the skills you've unlocked. You have this much power point by build your character for the party.
And you have like this much social capital, and
I mean, it's already sort of in the backgrounds, right? The whole thing of like, oh, you're an acolyte, so if you wander into the church, then everybody's gonna know. Like, you're a fighter, you're a soldier, so you should be able to go over to the bar, find the other guy who holds a rank, and be like, oh, where'd you serve?
Right.
And now you have a friend, and by the end of the party, there are 7 of you over there, drunk out of your minds, having the best
telling stories about the good old days.
And that's a fantastic way to like gain information or suddenly create an inn, because now you know these other people. Like, or
pick up a new job or something like that, because you overheard something.
If more people in D&D bothered to play their backstories, that would happen more often. Very few people play their backstories.
Because it doesn't reward, like, this is the thing about D&D though, is that it doesn't reward that.
Right.
Like, it's what I mean too when I talk about the culture of it, is that, like, we have things where it's like, oh, I play D&D and we have this great character story about all this kind of stuff. And it's like, cool. All of that happened in spite of the rules. Not because of them.
All the stuff I talked about for the backgrounds, they're all abilities to circumvent problems, not interact with problems. You got into town and you don't have a place to stay. Well, this guy's an acolyte, so we just go to the church. And then you don't have a further conversation.
Yeah. Right. It's just a lever.
Yep.
Yep.
There are a lot of levers in D&D. And a lot of buttons that we've discussed already.
But it does put a lot of work on the DM and on the players. The game does not do very much work for you.
No, and it does set up a bad power dynamic that is frequently abused, and that's where a lot of the problems in D&D stem from.
Right, right. A lot of problems in the hobby in general, because it
is the hobby.
Stuck around in a lot of other games.
It sure did.
Throw some collaborative world building in there, and that'll fix a good amount of that power dynamic. And then
I've been playing more of those lately.
You gotta involve the players more in everything that's going on, because that meta knowledge is gonna be kind of gold for going forward without having all these things devolve into it's a game of numbers.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, I can't read second edition Pathfinder because there's too many tables and too many options, and I feel like I have to go through it. It's just a convoluted book and I can't handle it. But I do still very much love the idea of like having your core class and then having your point buy abilities, where it's just like, you didn't level up yet, but also here's 1,000 feats and they're all minor, and they're all things like I can go to a party and make friends with the other soldiers. I can walk into a restaurant and they'll recognize me as a critic, and then we will get better service.
They're useful storytelling things.
Sure. But like, you read through those, like I read through a 3.5 book recently, The Sunless Citadel, because I was prepping for a podcast edit. And like at the very beginning of the book, in the intro, they talk about you walking through this field towards the town on this little winding road. And the description literally says, and then you walk past 1d6 + 3 abandoned shacks. They expect you to roll for the 1d3 abandoned shacks, so you can randomize the amount of useless abandoned shacks that no one will go into, just so your players can feel like they're fully immersed in your fantasy story.
I'm sorry.
Because the only reason to have shacks is to have the players go into them. And if they're randomized, it means the contents of the shacks aren't set, which means implicitly in D&D there is nothing in those shacks, which means it is extra garbage.
They told you to roll 1d6 + 3 Hollywood fronts of shacks.
Okay, but I, as a player, am definitely going in there.
Right, because as soon as you have to roll them, it draws your attention in a way that it shouldn't. Right? There's so much of that at old D&D.
But that goes back to that whole, like, don't roll if nothing happens.
Exactly.
Even if you roll it ahead of time, it guarantees that the DM is going to describe them. And one of the worst habits in D&D is if the DM says it, it's important.
Right. If you say, and you walk past 4 empty shacks, immediately the adventure is now derailed.
Yep.
Right, because now in my head I'm like,
I cast Shatter.
Why are there 4 empty shacks? Yeah,
Why are they empty?
I want to speak with some animals. Let's get the
Squirrel
story
think
here.
about this shack.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. But again, it's one of those, like, the rules are not, the rules in the books are not the games we're playing. They're just not. And it's very extremely frustrating to me when people are like, oh, I love D&D. I'm like, but do you?
But do you really, or do you love your version?
I get that you love the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
That's great. And I'm super happy for you, but I don't think you love D&D.
Yeah, I love Calvin Ball too, but it took a long time for us to get here from baseball. Like, we made up all these rules, guys.
Right. So on that note, about like making up your own rules and all that kind of stuff, what is the most uniquely interesting thing that you have seen in a game of D&D? Whether it was a choice a player made, something that you did, something you made up, something you read. What is like the thing that stood out to you that you were like, yes, this is good?
So this is going to be one. This is not going to be one in particular thing, but this is a general rule about this that'll make every D&D game better. Right?
Okay.
Every time I play a game of D&D, I want one person who knows the rules more than I do and is a little bit more of a DM than I am. I want them here. And on the opposite end, I want someone who's never played before. I want the new D&D player every time, because they will do one thing that no one else will do, and it's ask the questions everyone expects a no to. They will ask things that everyone else has been geared to assume there's going to be a no, or at least the assumption of an expected no, and therefore won't try. But that player will try every single time. Going back to D&D Live, I had a player at like first level decide to try and cast Suggestion on an 18th level character because they didn't expect the no. No one else would have tried it, and they didn't expect the no, and that character rolled a 1. So they got it. Like, sometimes it'll work, and no one else would have gotten you there unless it was a brand new player.
And and I like those situations when they do things that nobody else would think to do, because they're like, this is D&D and this is what we do in D&D.
Exactly.
I like it when I run games for my kids. Because they just like, they don't have those like limits on their imaginations and like what you can do. So it's just like, I'm going to do this. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I always go back to like, the first time I ran No Thank You Evil for them, it was like this party scene or whatever. And my son's like, can I tell you what's in the buffet? And I'm like, go for it. And he's like, there's blue Jello. And there's like, he's listing all of these things. And I'm like, awesome. Like that is now important to your story that there is blue Jello. Like, but you just don't, you know, as adults and people who have gamed forever, we're like, yes, when I go into D&D, I'm like going to look around for this thing, and I'm going to, you know, like, you just don't, there are questions you don't even bother to ask because you're like, that's not important.
I searched the buffet table for traps. Everyone's like, no, I just walk up to the buffet table. Who is this weirdo searching for traps everywhere?
Right. And you're like, I lift up the tablecloth because I want to see like what's underneath the table.
Hey, who are you? Be at a party.
Right. But, you know, it's like people who just, they're like, okay, I can do anything. I'm going to do anything then. Yeah. Whereas the rest of us are like, oh, I can do anything. I guess I'll hit it with a sword. Like, I
can do anything. Here's my checklist of things I always do.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I love playing with new people. It's so much fun.
Okay. Absolutely.
This is a two-parter. First thing, player death sucks unless it's going to be like player character death. Obviously, player death is tragic.
Player death is
it's real bad. That'll end the game.
Does that happen to you a lot?
Well, it depends how annoying they get. And what you got?
He's threatened several times,
and yet Aram is still around.
Somehow I'm still.
We record online.
It's because that whole like Canada America thing is like really tough.
For a long time, that border was shut down. Yep. Otherwise, I would be gone.
Only his side of the border has guns, which is really the best way to line this one up. But so a PC dying at any point sucks. But one of the rules I set out with my parties when I run home games is if we enter a situation where we're fighting a goblin horde and you go down and the die roll is bad and you would die, unless you think that is like a cool moment and you want to do a new character, obviously you can opt in. Our baseline is you don't die, but I own you now. Mm-hmm. Now we get to wait until there is a cool moment when it would be thematic. And that's the thing that opens the door to things like the villain stabbing you in the back and it actually matters.
Yeah.
Because 20th level party walks in and it turns out that the king has been stringing him along the whole time and he puts a sword through the back of the wizard, the weakest member of the party, and you roll a d8 and add 3 and you're like, and you take 11 points of damage. And the wizard turns around and goes, I cast Disintegrate. Yeah. Nope, that moment doesn't work. But now you have this thing where you can immediately be like, no. And for this is when it pays off. And the player gets it because it was foreshadowed because they knew from that moment, like borrowed time.
Something's coming.
Yeah. Also, players love to conspire with the DM.
That's the second. Yeah. That's the second half of that.
You feel special.
Because that is the most effective thing to do at the start of a fight. So the other thing you always have to make sure you do is give them a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And bring that player on side because no one at the table is going to be crueler to your players than your players.
100%.
So when the wizard finally reveals his master plan and in the process of it just smites the paladin, the golem he just animated, here you go, paladin, destroy them.
Yeah.
Go.
100%.
So
Could not
much
more fun. Yeah, whenever you get to put players in different bodies, they can't wait to tear each other apart.
No, I think player death, like it needs to be.
It needs to be warranted,
meaningful, because there's nothing worse than just like, okay,
you don't get to play anymore.
I took damage, and like because of my rolls, I just kind of fell apart. It feels awful, and so giving players the choice to say like, is this moment narratively meaningful? Is this the moment where you want to go down and like sacrifice yourself for your give them one more round to do that then if they want to.
Yeah. It failed my perception roll and missed a trap that spun a fireball that killed me.
Yeah, that's the worst. That's the worst way to go. Yeah, it really is. And then because there's that threat, it just creates this way of play where like we have to go into a room and check every door and listen at the door. Do we get our listen rolls done? And it's just like it adds all this time onto like
because no player now is going to do anything.
Right?
Like they're going to be so afraid to do anything because they don't want that to happen to them too.
We're going into the trap hole. Okay, well let's all roll for the trap hole, and then that's how you play the thing. Yeah,
and that's how I found I started playing Baldur's Gate 3 recently, and I am playing that way. Like I walk one person forward and they get a perception roll and it dice rolls above their head and it says, failed your perception roll. I immediately pull them back, pull in the next character to do the exact same roll with guidance. So that way I have a better chance of succeeding at this. Like,
there's a checkpoint.
Yeah. And I do that with all 4 characters. If I don't succeed, then I reload the game because I'm that annoying of a
player. Have you tried turning it off?
Well, he did. He turned it off and then turned it right back on.
And then I succeeded my roll because it's all
my
random.
gamer strats.
and
so you're not having fun.
Now I've got 6 games in Baldur's Gate 3. It's fine.
I've reloaded. I've rage reloaded XCOM 2 so many times I can't even possibly. Because I'll name my characters after literally after my friends. So like Dylan. Well, Dylan can die, but other ones need to come back. I can't lose Amelia.
Yeah. 100% save every turn, every action. And if it succeeds, keep going, save it. And if it fails, reload.
Amelia, you're shaking your head, but I want to call out when you're talking about a D&D video game, it's a pre-written plot that you have no say in. If I fail an action in a narrative thing that we're all doing together and we're making up a story as a result of that, sometimes that's the most interesting thing that happens. When I know that I'm coming into a boss fight in a little bit and the game won't progress until I win the boss fight and I walked through a trap and because the random number generator said so, I lost a third of my health. No, garbage, try again.
Do not want. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that is the difference. Is like, am I making like active decisions or are things happening to me?
Look at it this way. Don't look at it as resetting. Look at it as you're you are caught in a Groundhog Day time loop, and this is just the next loop.
I'm shaking my head more because, like, how is this fun? Like, why are you this doesn't even sound fun to me. Like, doesn't even sound fun to me. So I guess,
play for the cinematics and the romance. It's
also, lots of games are about micromanagement that are tons of fun. So this is just another version.
It's true.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
It's literally that 8th type of fun that we talked about on our type of fun episodes that's not in the actual tabletop role playing.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean,
submission type.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. Grind me into the dirt fun.
Yeah, see, like I just don't like grinding. I just don't.
I can't do it like Elden Ring stuff. Like I can't do stuff where I just get.
No, but even Destiny, I stopped playing because it was like if you don't play all the time, like then you're under leveled, and I just don't want to spend all of my time doing the same thing over and over to get up to the level that I need to be at. Like no,
once
I am a grown woman with so much time in my day.
There was a period of time when I needed my Warcraft friends. Once I had other friends and was doing other things, Warcraft is kind of a big, huge drag on your time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like for some people that is their kind of fun. Like they have a great time with that. Yeah. Awesome. Not for me.
Right. It's I can.
So normally this is where we talk about the history of the game. We already did that like 4 years ago.
Sure.
So I mean,
it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed much.
No, the history is still the history. Yeah.
But we're seeing a lot more supplements kind of nowadays than I remember, at least growing up. I mean, there was a lot of 3.5 supplements that you go to a game store and there's like probably 100 different official D&D books that you could just grab. Like, I want everything about a monk, so I'm just going to grab the monk subclass book or something. Yeah. Ridiculous like that. But
here's the furthest left coast of the Sword Coast. Here's a whole book about it. Yeah.
but now we're getting supplements like you can play Stargate in 5e. You can do all this other stuff in the 5e framework and stuff. And
no, you can't.
you can. Should you?
There we go.
That's an argument. I 100% agree. So yeah, it's interesting that we're kind of seeing this almost I hate to use the word renaissance of like games being created using this framework, but there's a lot of things that you can add on, and we're going to demonstrate that a little bit coming up soon because I found the perfect race for my character. Perfect. Okay, but we'll get there. All I'm saying is, the history of D&D, it's evolving.
Yes, there is a lot of content being made around one system that makes it a universal thing so it can all interact, and that is a singular thing that hasn't happened before. That's the highest concentration of that. Apple. They can say the same thing. It's a wall. So yes, it is a very pretty walled garden that is being made right now. Yes. And is it a very nice walled, a garden to make certain games in, and therefore having a large pool of people that can then buy your games. And it's very easy to say it's the sci-fi version of D&D. It's the Western version of D&D.
And it's all compatible.
And it's all compatible. It's all
none
5e
of it is
compatible.
Stop putting it in the
But hang on.
No, it is compatible.
It's
compatible. It uses the same kind of dice.
It does, come on, Dylan. So it does.
It has the little 5E on the cover. It's compatible.
I'm going to just be over here being grumpy.
You can say that, but Dylan's right. It's all usually like you have to do so many things to get there. You have to make so many concessions, build so many bridges, when you could just say, just play D&D for D&D, pick up this other thing. And that's actually probably a better gaming ecosystem. And it also makes you a better gamer because it makes you think in ways differently. It makes you compute the math differently. It makes you get to the same solutions in different ways. So you're a better storyteller.
I have to say that I think that Apple analogy is good, though, as someone who just switched back to an iPhone from Android. And I've been texting my friends who have had iPhones all along, because I used to have one. And then I'm like, hey, I can't figure out how to do this. and they'll go, okay, well, if you go in here and do this and you switch, you know, like use the shortcuts thing. And then if you get picture, like you can change. And I was like, I can't just like reskin it. Like you have to do it each individual thing. Yeah. And then I was like, how do I get the icons to not be all up at the top of the screen? Well, if you get this app, then you can get like a blank box or whatever that'll push them to. And I was like, but on Android, it just had a grid and I just slotted them in wherever I wanted. Yep. No, you can't do that. Nope. I want to do this. Well, you can get an app and you can go over here and to do this to make it compatible. And I was like, but why can't I just get, and it's like, well, if you want to do that, just get an Android. Yeah. Like just get the thing that's meant to do that, you know? Yep. But everybody else has the iPhone. And so now I can do the little reactions when my sister texts me and I, you know, like we're speaking the same language now when I do that. So that way it's more convenient.
No, it's and absolutely like, it's the 100%. Bit of this that always becomes frustrating is I have a great deal of respect for all the people doing this design work because it is good design work, but also it feeds.
You're working in a bad framework.
Yeah, you're trying to build something from the ground up in a system that does not want it to fit in, something that is meant for, like, take the example I went with.
When there's already a thing over here that's doing it better.
Yeah, right. But that's the
part that frustrates me is like we're taking away from the thing that already does it better.
And then it's a problem.
And they're just going to get more locked into this because, again, they're building for databases now.
When you show up, you're like, oh, look at this glut of material. D&D must really be able to do everything. So you have these players who are inundated with the idea of like, no. Star Wars is a D&D game. So, you know, horror is a D&D game. Like, but just please
conflict is a D&D game. That's what they're trying to sell.
Yeah. Please continue designing cool games and trying to slot them into whatever framework you want. There is nothing wrong with doing that. But also, please, for the love of God, support the designers that are building the experiences you're trying to have without square peg, round hole.
Right. There is something to say, though, about system mastery, right? Like if D&D is the thing that you know the rules like the back of your hand, and you want to play sci-fi, but you don't want to learn another set of rules. You don't want to go to a different system because it might feel weird, or your GM's not used to running anything aside from D&D. Now you've got options, and that's kind of cool. I get that. I understand.
I do think there's a level of like privilege involved in like finding a new system because you do have to buy new books, and you do, you know, whereas like, not that you don't have to in D&D, but like they're supplements instead of core books, you know, sometimes. And like there's a cognitive load involved in learning a new system though. And like as somebody who like spends a ton of time reading new games, like it takes a toll. It's hard to do. And then you ask a group of like 6 people to do that.
Or you have to recreate that D&D experience of like, okay, this is a relatively complicated system, but I'm the only one who's going to learn it. And then I'm going to teach it to you over the course of 3 sessions. And
Right. And to get every person to buy into that. And
and even if you aren't planning on using it as a writer, as a gamer, as someone who's making these games, if you're using D&D as the core analogy, because that's what everyone understands, even if you're going to write something else, it'd probably behoove you to think, how can I make this work in D&D? Okay, how can I take some of those lessons? Right.
Even.
Yeah. And then how can I take some of those lessons and then make this game using what I've learned, trying to make this work in D&D? It's a good exercise if nothing else.
Yeah. I will say, as somebody who has like role-playing games like somewhere in their dating profile, the number of times I've had to explain to people like, no, not D&D. No, you can't. No, there's a better game to do that. Like, no. And they're like, let me explain, but in my D&D.
Your Hinge audio is that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's me just being like, it's not D&D. I did have to take that out because it was too many characters. Like I had in there, it was like RPGs, not D&D. But I did have to take that out and I regret it.
You just used an exclamation point before the D&D and now you're writing programmer speak and it's fine.
But yeah, like the number of times people are like, let me tell you about my D&D game, and me being like, that sounds like this game.
Yeah.
It would do that better. And then they don't want to go on dates with me.
Because you rush their perception of reality.
Yeah. I know. That's what it is.
But it's a real good test, because if one of them gets through that, filter, then they're good to go. Yeah.
Right. Can we just do a quick run through of like the basic terms and concepts we might need to know? Because we're going to talk about races and classes and subclasses and things like that. So if you can give us a quick rundown.
Okay. Which one, Aram, you want to take this or am I taking this?
Is it a rules thing?
Good point. So,
Don't you like run a game like regularly all the time?
And he doesn't get better at it.
No, Dylan's been involved. I've not gotten better.
No.
Just people like me.
It's also baffling. So, base level. Races is a bad term to use. It's your species. Are you going to be an elf, a halfling? What sort of background did your character come from? Coincidentally, there's also the background. It gives you extra proficiencies. No one ever uses them for anything. They're effectively meaningless the way the game is currently designed. You have your class, which is what you do. So really, there are the two things that matter. Your species, which is who you are. Your class, which is what you do. Then when you start describing the character themselves, you have your base 6 stats, your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Just the different facets of your abilities. They give you the number that you add to the die when you want to figure out if you did something right. You get a list of skill proficiencies, and if you were proficient in a skill, it means that you add more numbers to it. There's a bunch of skills. Most of them don't get used. After that, you get your class abilities, which are the things that your class says you can do. You get your feats, which are better and more interesting every single time. And then there's hit points and armor class. And hit points is how hard it is to kill you, or how long it takes to kill you. Armor class is how hard it is to kill you. If you have a high armor class, it's hard to hit you. If you have a lot of hit points, I have to hit you a lot to make you go down. That's D&D in a nutshell.
Did you do saving throws?
Saving throws are like skills, but for not getting murdered.
Oh, not getting murdered is an important skill.
It is.
But it's not one skill, it's several skills.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I got this one.
Yep.
That's like the one rule I know.
Yep. Don't die. If you die, your character will be dead.
Yep. And the points don't matter anymore.
All right.
Okay.
And you might end up as a ghost that's haunting your zombie body.
I would like that to happen.
Really
I want to write that. Yeah. I want to write it so they're attached to a pendant that the zombie wears. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's good.
We've got the history. We've got basic terms and the concepts. Are we ready to make some people?
Let's do it.
I think so.
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
Yeah.
Let's make some people.
Excellent.
Very nice. It's a good job.
All right. So we're doing this one a little differently. We've hinted at it quite a few times throughout the episode so far. We're all pulling in character options from different sources. Dylan might be making the most normal quote unquote D&D character here, but we'll see.
I'm going on a steep gradient where I have some small picks from some of the weird books, and I'm going straight back into the player's handbook because that's where the best things live.
Amazing.
Okay.
So we've got a whole bunch of supplements between us that we're just kind of pooling together, and we're going to see kind of what character options we throw out there. And then we're going to kind of see what sort of world this party would exist in.
Yeah. I'm really excited for that part of how do we make this work?
This is going to be a lot of fun because I was put onto this Tales of Arcana 5e race guide, which has like over 400 different races that you can choose from. I'll save my pick for last.
That is so specifically not for me. Like there are so many people that would love that book. I'm not knocking it in the slightest, but that is so very much not my deal.
Yeah, it definitely like changes the tone depending on what you're doing.
We
started this off with I would love to streamline this to fit a more specific thing. 400 distinct cultures.
Yeah, so I went to a random page, Angel Angel, and then I went to another one, and there is a race called Flatulent.
Yeah.
And
that is what Aram is going to pick because it's close to a flump.
Yet another one, Krampus. You can play a
Santa. Like Krampus.
You can play a Krampus.
Santa.
They've got Sasquatch in here.
The same.
Yeah.
Not the same at all.
Like a dog.
Yeah,
just like how that's like Santa. Yeah.
So I'm going to be picking my race from this book because it's phenomenal. I could not pass up the opportunity. But there's a lot of amazing options. You could play a skeleton.
Fun.
You could play a slasher like character, like Jason Voorhees type.
Cool.
Like this is wild.
You know, you could build that with a human
it's
and a
gonna.
feat, right?
And this is all in like one book.
Yeah.
Like,
This is one book that has just like tons of options. I'm really into it.
Just saying, variant human.
The accessibility is like not the greatest in the book, but like seriously, it's good, and I'm gonna roll with it, and we'll see what happens.
Nice.
So what's everybody thinking?
I'm trying to, because like a bunch of these books have like one part, like this one has subclasses. So it's like, I need to build everything up to the subclass that I want to do. So I'm going to have to pick different things from different books and try to mash them together.
Well, that's what I need to pick a class. So
like, cause some of the books have, you know, everything all the way through. But I don't know. I'm gonna see. Dylan, what are you doing? You seem to have like the clearest plan. He's going to make a human fighter.
With both of his parents still living.
Yep.
Come on.
They're really nice to him. Raised on a farm. The farm's doing great.
That's like the least D&D character I've ever heard.
Honestly, that's a character that I would be very, very happy to play. I played one orphan character once, and the story was specifically dealing with the fact that he was upset that his parents were dead, and we were kind of coming to terms with it. It was very fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Actually,
it sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was great. It's actually, we'll talk later. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, it sounds nice. It does.
So
it sounds very nice. Very wholesome.
I'm giving myself some wiggle room to lean into the party as necessary. So I'm pulling from, and Aram is going to scoff at this. I'm going to pull from Dragon Stew, and I'm going to take the baker background because that's funny.
Scoff.
Amazing.
Much scoffing.
I mean, persuasion and athletics are awesome proficiencies to get out of that. And the rest of it is just, like you said, it's cute, and it's a skill that I feel like can come up a lot during the game. Like, that's actually a really good thing to pull from.
I know. I like that one.
Yeah.
That book is really cute.
I'm going to look through this more later. But
Dylan just thinks that I hate food.
No, you hate it when I talk about food.
Yes.
But yeah, we're going to do a baker. We're going to do an orc cleric. Now, how I tilt that is I'm going to pull the orc out of Monsters of the Multiverse, because that is a better stat block than the initial orc stat block that gave him like negatives to, I think, either charisma or intelligence or both. We're going to go from there.
Amazing. Ooh.
Okay. I am playing a Loxodon named Johnny Sax. And Johnny Sax is a bard who plays their trunk like a saxophone.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
How do you already have a name?
Johnny Sax.
How did he come up with Johnny Sax? The elephant that plays his trunk like a
Not
sax?
a saxophone. He doesn't.
Johnny Sax has a big white, like big shouldered, double-breasted white coat and a fedora. With
This is the worst thing you've ever said.
Flamingo feather. In fact, it is.
Flamingos are my favorite animal.
You know what? I'm here for you. Johnny Sax
This
is
is
here
worse
for you.
than the Flump episode.
Amazing.
How did you do that?
I want to make something like super spooky.
I'm already upset. Saxophone
Absolutely.
is not an option in the musical instrument drop down.
Make that up.
All right. So
If you got gnomes, you can get
Really?
saxophones.
Make it up. Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
I can find a supplement that's got
What is the
saxophones in
most
it.
saxophone-like instrument out of these
A
instruments?
Do they have a
saxophone.
clarinet in there?
It's fine.
Because
Well, what is a songhorn?
That sounds fictional.
saxophone-like,
That's
right?
It sounds like a
Songhorn.
saxophone.
The
Yeah.
songhorn.
Any brass instrument is technically a songhorn.
yeah, you
That's
know
right.
saxophones are woodwinds, right?
Shh.
Are they?
Yeah,
There's also just horn. I guess I could
It's
have
not a horn.
taken that.
it's a
That's true.
woodwind.
It's not called a saxohorn. You're fine. Fine. Okay. There's also bird pipe, and bird pipe could be anything. So I'm taking that. I don't know. I have no
Is that
idea.
just a
Could be
bird
anything,
call?
though.
Yeah.
I got a whistle.
could
That's
be.
my
It
bard
could be.
instrument.
All right. So, I've only got my race picked out so far. Like I said, it's from Tales of Arcana, the 5e race guide. And I am going to be playing what is known as a vroom vroom.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally a sentient car.
So on board for this.
I know.
I'm so excited for this episode.
I want it.
So Vroom Vrooms are sentient automobiles from the realm of Motorheim, of course. Though they have inorganic exteriors, internally they are organic with a skeletal structure, organs, and blood-like fluids.
Ew.
Born from a mother factory, Vroom Vrooms lived harsh lives, hunted by vile train creatures known as choo-choos. Few have been able to make the journey to Arcana. Okay, so now, is there really choo-choos in this book too?
I don't know.
Be, right?
I'll look, because they're all in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to how big your car can be?
Size. Vroom Vrooms have the same dimensions as a real-world car, standing around 5 feet tall, between 14 and 15 feet long, and around 6 feet wide. They weigh around 3,500 pounds. Your size is large.
Could you be a tour bus?
That might be a little too big.
Could you be a VW
Right,
bus?
Choo-choos are not in here.
Your base walking speed is 40 feet.
Could you be like a VW bus though? Like could you be the kind of van that like a small band might
That
tour
a
around
small
in locally?
elephant could
I don't know. There's a
fit.
lot of options on here because like
Carburetors.
okay, it says rarity unknown. Even though automobiles exist in industrial areas, your Vroom Vroom would be one of the first to leave the realm and arrive at Arcana. So they have a passenger compartment. You can have terrible climber, of course.
Sure. Right. That would be a problem.
Right. Unique appearance.
Stairs in general.
Okay, so the appearance of each Vroom Vroom varies depending on what vehicle they are based on. You're encouraged to base your character on an existing brand, or you can pick a more historical model if that better fits the campaign setting.
Neither of those will fit a campaign setting.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So yeah, your Vroom Vroom might resemble a truck, SUV, or van, which would change the appearance of your character, but has no game function.
No, it's just like with Transformers. They as soon as the ship crashes, they scan the area and become whatever's around them.
Yeah.
There is the variant of the Vroom Vroom as well. You could play a variant Vroom Vroom, which is an actual sentientized car.
So right.
Instead of, it's
an awakened Taurus.
It's an yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I gotta figure out what type of car I'm gonna be.
Do you make a car?
And
if you make a druid,
I am going to make it a rogue. I'm gonna make it a rogue because I want it to be a spy car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's
got like gadgets and stuff.
It's like a convertible.
It's got a disguise kit.
Or I guess it could go
It's like an
artificer,
Aston
right?
Martin is what it needs to be.
Well, that's true. But is it a fancy spy or is it like an FBI van spy? Like what kind of spy is it?
It's like James Bond spy level car. Yeah.
It's an Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like an Aston Martin, like
Martinis
decked out
in the
with
dash.
Yeah. So my long range bow attack is literally an arrow that shoots out the front or something, right?
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
That'd be more like a crossbow at that point, right?
You do realize there's an entire class or race in this book called Magical Girl, right?
That's amazing.
No.
Starting over.
Are you serious?
Magical
Page
Girl is a
280.
class, not a race.
No,
I agree.
it's
I'm
Magical
not saying
Girl.
that you're wrong about what's
Okay, I
in the
gotta read
book. I'm
that,
saying the
but-
book is wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
why
now,
is
but now I have to
major
flip
race?
through and see
Also
if there's
a class.
There probably is. There probably is.
Shh, I know. I'm going to play a sorcerer that does something with blood over here. Ooh, there's a thing called Painbringer. That seems legit.
Magical girls are, this is for the age. Magical girls arise from adults. They can live as long as humans, but rarely survive past 30. That's dark.
That's
for a
very
magical
dark.
No,
girl
by the end of
Yeah,
some
that is
magical girl
super
stories, like they always start off fluffy pink rainbows, but by the end of some of them, like
They get dark.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
it's a little weird putting a 30-year-old expiration date on a magical girl. Something about that doesn't
Just-
sit right with me.
Well, I mean, in all those magical girl shows, you never see
never gonna
like
get-
an elder Magical
You're
girl.
never going to
That's
get
true.
like a
The series
60-year-old
ends.
transformation
Yeah.
sequence, and then they're like, "I'm not going to join the fight, but I know
I
what
would
you're going through."
love a generation. I would love
Yeah,
a
That'd be amazing.
generational magical girl story
That'd
that
be amazing.
grandma joins in.
Yeah.
name
one
something
last battle.
more anime
Mhm.
than grandma who like can't do this anymore, can't come with you to fight the grand necromancer, but someone shows up and threatens the house, and grandma just like, nope, transformation time.
Yeah. Here comes Gaia.
Fantastic.
Yeah. 100%.
Exactly. Okay, so I love that I could be a magical girl, but I gotta be a vroom vroom.
You
That's
gotta be
fine.
a car. You can't
gotta be a car.
You can't
And then
introduce
back.
being a car.
You
and
can't
Yeah, and
back
then not
that
go
out.
back.
Not be
I
a-
know. I just felt
Yeah.
obligated to let you know.
I appreciate that. Like I said, there's over 450 options in this book, and like it is so easy to just skip over like 450 of them
Yeah.
and just hone in on a couple.
You can be like a sock puppet.
Why?
You could be a bowl of ramen. But then they do have cool stuff like different varieties of, there's skeletons, but they also have like oni and orishas and just like all kinds of stuff.
Wildly
Slime cube.
disappointed
That's
that the rogue
amazing.
archetype in Tasha's Crucible of everything else, it's called Improviser, but it's about being a MacGyver and being able to create traps. And I was really hoping,
Oh,
that my rogue went through Second City.
I feel like that's more of a bard thing.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think like an improv bard would be.
I'm pretty sure that's all
Obnoxious,
the
but someone should
bards,
do it.
and it is obnoxious.
All bards are
Yeah, it's
obnoxious.
just a baseline.
I'm pretty
So-
sure there's a transformer in this book.
Oh, there's gotta be.
My elephant's name is Kenny G.
I thought it was Johnny Sacks.
It should be Johnny Sacks. Is it Johnny Sacks or is it
It
Kenny
has
G?
to be.
You
It
said
has to
Johnny
be
Sacks. It's gotta be
It's
Johnny Sacks.
Yeah.
Johnny Sack. That'd be Johnny Sack.
Yeah, Johnny Sacks is better. SAXX. No, SACHX. Wait, SACHS. Yeah, Johnny Sacks. I love Johnny.
All right. It'd be Sarah.
Okay, so do I want to be a part spider person or do I want to be like a digital, a digigod?
I mean,
Ooh.
both are pretty good.
The digigod
but
looks pretty
yeah.
Call to action.
cool. Yeah, like that. This episode, huh?
Well, there's a lot of great discussion, honestly, at the beginning of this series, which is great because that's this episode.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, I
boy.
really enjoyed getting to sit down and talk to people who, spend a lot of time both running this game and thinking about it.
Yep.
And talking to a variety of different people about it too. That's one cool thing about their show is that they get to talk to people with all kinds of expertise.
Oh, yeah.
About stuff. And so the sort of unique perspective that they have on this game, as opposed to me just being like, 5e, and they're like, okay, but here's why. It's really interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And as you probably have heard, our characters are, they're something. And it only gets more something from here.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so yeah, you definitely have to stay tuned for next episode next week because, oh Lord.
It goes places, but it was fun,
It was a lot of
We were
fun.
clearly having a great time. And honestly, as somebody who listens to podcasts, a lot of times that's just fun to listen to. It's just like people having a good time.
Just pure chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, sometimes you don't want to because you're like, okay, where's the story?
Yeah.
But we don't have a story, friends. So
The story is the characters we made along the way.
yep. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as we did because we had a great time.
Exactly.
Before we let you go for the week, let's just do our calls to action. We'll try and be quick. We probably won't, though.
We'll try to be brief. It's fine. First, don't forget to submit your question to our Q&A. This is the last call for questions. We'll be recording this very soon. You can get those in at questions.charactercreationcast.com.
If you are desperate to hear more from us, please consider backing the One Shot Network Patreon at patreon.com/oneshotpodcast. You get access to the Secret Archive, which has several episodes from us. I'm not going to try and count how many. And a bunch of other shows on the network. You can watch that feed if you loved our Marvel episodes and want to hear our souls shatter just a little bit more.
So just a little more.
Just a little bit more.
It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know what you're into.
Exactly. Also coming up on Monday, May 16th is Miracle Monday. This is an event that Jeff Stormer is going to be doing some superhero themed stream up on the One Shot Network Twitch channel. So we teamed up with Jeff and John from System Mastery to record an actual play that will be part of this stream using the characters we created with the Marvel Superheroes series back in series 49.
Please know that we're not going to play Marvel. I just want to put that out there. No. So if anybody's like, oh, I don't really want to, we're recreating them in Sentinels, which we also recorded with Jeff and John. So I promise it'll be at least moderately listenable.
Yeah. So, so it'll be fine. And you know, we're still sticking to it. We created these characters in Marvel Superheroes. We're still not playing the Marvel superhero version of these characters.
It's true. We're squeaking by on this technicality, friends.
Very technical.
These are not the characters we created. Did we port them over word for word as much as we could? I mean, yes, pretty close. I technically have more superpowers than I did because I broke them down into parts because Sentinels wants you to be competent. So it's thematically the same types of powers. And but it's not the same. It's not the same.
I've probably got the most complex Sentinels character in all of history that probably breaks many of the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Just to get 10 powers or a changeling with 5 forms. But it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Either way, this stream will feature a lot of great superhero content, and all in the name of getting donations to the Trans Lifeline charity, which is definitely needed in this day and age.
Yeah, more than ever.
Absolutely. So please tune in to that. It's just 2 weeks away from today, and try to give a little bit to a really great cause, as well as be entertained for a while.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this game goes because we haven't recorded it yet. But then also what everybody else brings to this, because it's a lot of cool people doing cool stuff. So
absolutely.
Still no reviews. So please, we are literally begging you, please leave us reviews. You can leave them on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, and Facebook. You could also join our Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com and just tell us how great we are to our face.
Yeah.
That one doesn't help us as much, but I'll still take it. It
makes us feel good.
I'll still take it. Say it to my face.
I don't think threatening the audience.
You shouldn't threaten the audience? Okay.
Shouldn't threaten the audience.
Come in here and say it to my face. Tell me how great I am.
Do it now.
Yeah. Please.
Well, that's it for our calls to action. Thanks so much for sticking with us, everyone. Next week, we will be finishing our characters, which is definitely a whole thing.
That's a whole thing.
That happened.
Yep.
Until then, have a good rest of your week. Stay safe, drink some water, loosen your shoulders, unclench your jaw, maybe wear a mask, vaccinate, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to leave us a rating or review, we have links to various review platforms out there, including Apple Podcasts, in our show notes. Also, check the show notes for links to our other projects. Thanks for joining us, and remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We will see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs. Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you'll find other great shows like Neoscum.
Neoscum is a narrative comedy podcast featuring 5 Chicago improvisers antagonizing their way through the role-playing classic Shadowrun. It follows a group of misfits and outsiders: Z, the acerbic cyber troublemaker; Pox, the candy junkie klepto from across the pond; Tech Wizard, the public access actor with a petulant thirst for adventure; and Dak Rambo, the nastiest trucker this side of the Robo-Mason-Dixon. Join the irascible Neoscum crew on a puerile rockin' road trip through a weirdo world of tomorrow, doling out street justice to every deeb they encounter, whether they deserve it or not.